Hey, what's up, guys? This is Mitchell with FF Real Talk, and we're through 11 weeks of the fantasy season. And I don't know about y'all, but week 11, I've been playing, ironically, 11 years. And this past week had to be the collectively worst week of fantasy that I think I've ever experienced. Of 10, of 10 teams that I have, only two got triple digits. Most of my teams scored 80 points, win or loss. Everybody that was expected to do well just fizzled and had single digit points. It was just bad across the board, or everybody got hurt. It was just a weird week all the way around. And it seems like, we say that every week that it was weird, but this one is in particularly just bizarre. But what that makes for is even more bizarre situation in that before week 12 arises, you have a number of pickups. At this point, the waiver wire is not only scarce, it's about bone dry. But right now, we have a week full of pickups that remind you of around week 3 and 4. So this is very fortunate for those with playoff implications. So I hope everybody's either tuning in to this or to any of the so-called analysts or experts that you listen to, because they're going to be giving you some jewels this week. And we're going to start with the number one. But I told you about this guy before, so it's nothing new on my end. Thomas Rawls. This is the beginning of the end of the Marshawn Lynch in Seattle era. For the past few years, it's been speculation, of him either retiring, this, that, or the other. They were going to let him go or whatever. But everyone knew we just really can't do it because our team is based on the run and we don't have anything that can replace him. We're seeing the replacement, and it's not a fluke. This guy had 30 carries, 209 yards, a touchdown, plus 3 catches for 46 and a touchdown. Just wow. I don't know what happened last week. I said if you own Marshawn Lynch, all Marshawn Lynch owners need to own Rawls. Marshawn Lynch is 100% owned, so I'm not sure what happened there, but it's going to kick in now for all those who are edging for the playoffs or trying to get in. If you got a lower, well, you won't have a really low waiver wire, but this is the time of year where even if you don't have a low waiver priority, the people that's in 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th place, a lot of them have bowed out. So you might have a high waiver priority just by default. So put in your bids for Thomas Rawls and get rid of some of this dead weight on your team if you got a chance. And that leads to number 2, similar situation based on injury. Javorious Allen, who's more known as Buck Allen. Justin Forsett, unfortunately, is out for the season, broke his arm. You know what I'm saying? That's a tough situation. But there in Javorious Allen, Buck didn't do much, but this is what's of note: 22 carries. And that determines the fact that he's going to be the workhorse. And even more than that, Matt Schaub is about to take over as a starting quarterback. They're going to be dependent on the run. That right there is all you need to know to why you need to pick up Buck Allen, is because Schaub's going to be quarterbacking. They're going to be any chance they got of doing anything to be respectable the rest of the season is going to come through the run game, and it's going to come through Buck. So if you don't get claimed to Rawls, definitely pick him up second or tie with the third guy, Tevin Coleman. But the reason why Tevin Coleman is third and not second is because he's about to spell possibly Devontae Freeman if Devontae Freeman misses time. We already heard that he's in protocols and he's moving along fine. So this might be of no consequence, and just that Devontae Freeman owners need to have Tevin Coleman, because it's showing you what this sport is all about. With this week of everybody getting hurt and backups having to step in, this whole list is basically that. But Tevin Coleman didn't do anything on the ground, but I don't have any doubts that he will be a solid fill-in for Freeman if Freeman misses time. Should definitely be the third pickup. Number 4, someone who had a monster game, Spencer Ware, another injury. Charkandrick West went out with, I think it was a hamstring situation. Just like every other back on this list, something wrong. But Spencer Ware, in relief, late relief at that, gave the third best running back outing of the week, only on limited 11 carries. He got 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's telling you everything that you need to know about Kansas City's talent. And more importantly, now Davis has been completely phased out. So Spencer Ware becomes an immediately good pickup. Like I say, and he even has more possibility for long-term ownership, well, long as it can be, depending on how your playoff success is, or if you're getting there. Even I think I might even bump him, Spencer Ware, from 4 as I have him to 3, because this has the potential to pick up a little bit more, because hamstring injuries last a little longer. And while concussions, once they've had the protocols gone through, is oftentimes a week, maybe 2, is a done deal. But definitely he needs to be on. You own somebody that you can cut him for. Number 5, Vincent Jackson. He was heavily dropped across the board, and for good reason. He just wasn't producing like he hasn't been producing in a number of seasons, the last 3 at least. But if everybody's noticing, Jameis and Mike Evans have this connection that's undeniable. They're making things happen. Jameis threw 5 touchdowns, and that's given Vincent more opportunity. He was targeted 11 times this week. That's all you need to know. This is a sneaky little pickup here, and it's a sneaky pickup for the fact that you will be getting a top-notch talent. So get him. That would be the first receiver I would definitely grab. Number 6, James White. Not a big fan of James White, and I said it before, and I'm gonna say it again. When it comes to the Pats running backs, it's hard to depend on anything. You're seeing it ever since Deion Lewis went down. LeGarrette Blount's only been markedly good. He hasn't been great, but James White stumbled into the end zone twice. So you got to give him that. But anybody who plays fantasy long enough knows that touchdowns aren't dependable. They're fluky situations. You want to depend on targets, touches, carries, period. But if you're desperate, grab James White. He may give you something, but the problem is he'll probably be on your bench the day he does, just like this week. But he might be somebody's desperation pickup. Number 7, Ahmad Bradshaw. This is a situation sort of like Charkandrick West. Gore is hurt, but I don't know, and I haven't checked Roto World or anything that gives out the injuries that I look at. I've had a long day, so I hadn't been able to do it. But the last I heard, Gore was a little hurt, but not so bad that it's threatening his week. This is strictly a desperation grab if you need somebody extra, or if you're a Gore owner, because Ahmad Bradshaw can get it done when given a chance. He's good in the passing game and on the ground. So all Gore owners need to grab him, especially if you're in playoff contention. Number 8, Jameis Winston. Everybody saw it. 5 TDs. Don't ever expect that again with him. He may happen sometime next year or the year after, but that's an outlier. That's not going to be a normal occurrence. But what is something of note, this is for all playoff ready teams that are about to go to the fantasy playoffs. The schedule, week number 14, which is the first week of the fantasy playoffs, New Orleans. Week number 16, Chicago. Any team out there, you know how your team is. If you got a team that you know is solid and you're pretty much about into the playoffs or about to get there or whatever have you, or you already know you've clinched, Jameis, though it would be hard for me to start that rookie turnover machine in a week 14, first week of the playoffs situation, but he's got the New Orleans Saints, and the New Orleans Saints has been the closest thing to cake since a birthday. So if you got a quarterback that's even partly middling, he'd be a good use for week 14, the first week of the fantasy playoffs on ESPN Standard Leagues, that is. So have him as a backup plan. Put him on your bench. If you don't have a second quarterback, he'll be a good time. He'll be a good stash. Number 9, Alfred Blue. There's only one thing to say. If you add him for even this week, he's worth it. What did I just say about week 14 with Jameis? This week, Alfred Blue faces the New Orleans Saints. That's all you need to know. Though they've got the defensive coordinator situation is what it is, that's not going to be resolved this fast, I don't believe. Alfred Blue is primed to have a big week this week. That's kind of my gut call. I think Alfred Blue is going to go off. Maybe he won't, because Alfred Blue is real sketchy. But if he's ever going to do anything like what he did this past weekend, it'll be this week against the Saints. So if you need a plug-and-play running back because you're in a tight situation with running backs, even just for this week, grab Alfred Blue. And number 10, Brian Hoyer. What did I just say about Jameis in week 14? And what did I just say about Alfred Blue? The Saints. Brian Hoyer is to me, he's more than a game manager. He ain't a great quarterback, but he can put up some really good numbers, especially against a bad defense. And it doesn't get any worse than the Saints. This is one of those guys you want to possibly target in DFS lineups if you play daily fantasy. This is one of them guys you could get for the minimum $5,000, and he might turn out value really quickly. But him, as well as Brock Osweiler, for the fact that for those who lost Flacco and Tyrod Taylor looks a little hurt after last night's game, these are the 2 quarterbacks I would grab for emergency purposes. And so that's the 10 of the list. I got 4 honorable mentions. Devin Funchess. It looks like he's starting to come to life in that Carolina offense. Finally, Devin Funchess was a sleeper for me and a lot of people early in the season and before drafts. It looks like it's finally starting to come around, and it has to, because Carolina's playing too good and he's too talented for it not to catch up at least somewhat. So keep an eye on him at least. Cecil Shorts. Brian Hoyer, Alfred Blue, Jameis Winston. What did I say about all of them? The Saints. DeAndre Hopkins is going to go nuts this week. But if they double cover him, it makes Cecil Shorts an excellent spot start this week. So if you need a quick plug-and-play receiver because you're having some trouble somewhere with receivers, Cecil Shorts is the man. And the last honorable mention, Bilal Powell. He had a nice little solid game. I think he went for a total of 98 yards or something and some change of pace work with Chris Ivory. And y'all know Chris Ivory is highly susceptible to injuries. So for all Chris Ivory owners, this is the time to solidify yourself. Get Bilal Powell. He's one of those guys. He's not one of those definitive backups that I say, like I had said the last few weeks, that the new lesson is any definitive backups and clear-cut backups you need to roster at this point. He's not one of them, because Bilal Powell is kind of like, he's there. He's sort of like Alfred Blue. He can have his moments, or he sometimes is whatever. But this is the playoffs. And this is a situation where at any given time, you might have to grab somebody on a spot start because someone is showing up as inactive at 4:05. You need the person that's on that same team to plug and play in case. If you got Chris Ivory, you need Bilal Powell. So, but yeah, that's it with this list. And for all of y'all that's got playoff implications, good luck. It's with me, it's several of my 10 teams, I'm still in contention in 9 of them. But there's going to be only one more week of my videos. I do this just for the regular season. I'm not going to be doing it from week 14 on. So now's the time to hopefully you can squeeze that extra win out of there. I'm in a league where I have a 7-way tie with records of 6 and 5. This is my fantasy league there, my fan league, where I'm playing a lot of my listeners here and Twitter followers. 7 of us have the same record, and it's going to come down to points for or just better records over the next 2 weeks. So this has been a weird competitive season, and I'm loving every minute of it. But anyway, I digress. Good luck in week 12, and we'll see you next week for the last one. Y'all have a good one.